It's not looking good for Destiny 2. Bungie at this point has completely failed.
When I saw the title that our news team gave today's video, staff think Bungie's management are cutting and running, my interest was piqued.
If you have watched this channel before, we have covered Destiny and Bungie a lot recently, and you probably know that this was the expected outcome. At this point, the ship of Bungie is not sinking. It has already sank to the bottom of the ocean, and we're just waiting for the announcement that it has happened. There is a lot of financial information currently known about the inner workings of Bungie and Destiny, especially their sales figures and predictions. And all of that means that Bungie is going to be taken over. I don't remember who, was it Sony or Microsoft? I'm pretty sure it was Sony. Bungie had a deal with Sony that they need to hit a goal of revenue or something like that. And if they don't, Sony takes over. And it is very clear from the recent happenings and the data that we have that there is no way Bungie is hitting that goal. So Sony is going to take over Destiny 2. There is no doubt at this point that it's going to happen. There is no miracle that can happen at this point, okay? Unless some kind of billionaire decides to buy 10,000 copies of Destiny, Bungie is going to be out of the picture. And since most likely everyone internally at Bungie knows this, everyone is trying to jump ship as soon as possible because they all probably want to get new jobs. Because when a company gets taken over, it doesn't get taken over typically because it's a great company and it's doing good. No, it's because some other company or someone with a lot of influence and money is looking at it and saying, wow, you're doing bad. I could manage this so much better. And that is the case with Destiny 2 and Bungie. So all the people with even remotely reasonable power and people with no power are most likely going to be completely axed and replaced when the Sony takeover happens of Bungie. So the smart people know that their days are numbered and they're trying to jump ship as fast as possible because they're going to be replaced most likely no matter what.
And I've got to imagine yours is as well. So here's what's happened. With the first of 3 live streams, Bungie have revealed their Into the Light content. That is basically what will lead Destiny 2 into the final shape, which is the final expansion in its current arc. Content-wise, things actually seem kind of good, with a long-requested gameplay mode being added to the game, the promise of 2 more streams as well to showcase even more stuff. So that seems good, but people have been talking. People have been talking to IGN. Sources are alleging that rumbly things are going on, that staff do not feel sure about what is next, and the implication is that management are about to cut and run as soon as they are able. Very much, of course, unlike us, with the assist from today's sponsor. And I really do mean it, they literally pay the bills, no Lambos, no bullshit. Boot.dev, here's the deal. A cyber forensic investigator inside the file system of a megacorp World Bank. So what was really your first purchase will be 25% off if you use my code, and that's backed by their no questions asked 30-day money-back guarantee, and they got free demos of all their courses. So cheers, Boot. Let's roll with the video. Okay, so Bungie are doing these 3 live streams to showcase what Into the Light is going to be. This is the stuff leading us into the final shape, which is scheduled for June. And so far, to be honest, what they've shown on the game side is kind of cool. There's a mode called Onslaught, which basically is a wave-based PvE mode. And certainly when I think about, you know, Firefight in Halo, you know, that thing Bungie used to do, it does kind of make sense. Now, what happens here is fire teams defend a single point on a Crucible map with a tower defense style option for placing defenses and things across the area, which, to be honest, I actually think sounds pretty damn cool. It's got multiple difficulties from a 10 wave mode to a 50 wave mode with rotating defense points. And seemingly, there's quite a lot of design, like, being put into this. Players are being asked to do, like, mini objectives across.
Well, I'm gonna say, just as a gamer, this does sound good, but then again, there's a reason typically shooter games don't do this, because you're a shooter game, not a tower defense game. Chances are, your balance is not exactly gonna be great, so the towers are probably gonna be OP, and it's gonna probably be way too easy, and people are gonna get bored really fast of this. Now, I could be wrong, but, you know, as a gamer, just from a pure gamer perspective, that's typically how these things end.
across the map in the middle of matches and things like that. There are mini boss encounters and other things going on, so it doesn't look like it's some sort of half-assed effort. That's all well and good, but what do you get from it, other than like fun and playing a video game? Well, we don't know. The rewards are going to be properly detailed in next week's stream. It is weapons though, but then the third stream we'll talk about the other content that will be in this event. Now, this is all running from April 9th through to the final shape, and we don't actually know if this mode is going to be sticking around after the event. So overall, it does seem pretty decent. It's essentially another thing to do to tide us over until...
Okay, yeah, I'm pretty sure the Destiny community is not going to be happy that that mode doesn't stick around, like, 80% of the game that has been sunset at this point. I have a feeling that the Destiny 2 player base is not exactly going to be thrilled about hearing again that more content is gonna go away forever, especially if this is actually really successful and people like it, because there is a chance it is successful and people really like it. So, that doesn't sound good.
That expansion comes out. I mean, more gameplay stuff is never really a bad thing, even though this, yes, is definitely filling out some space where the final shape obviously should have been out. It should have been out already because it was initially scheduled for February. As for the final shape, it's looming rather large, and really for Destiny, it does seem like a do or die moment. I mean, we've all heard the previous reporting that they are 45% below what their revenue estimates were. And that's kind of an old number, but I mean, it's not like the news has got any...
That is a beyond huge number, though. Do not make any mistakes. That kind of underperformance is very easily completely company wiping.
Better for Destiny 2, so yeah, I would be kind of worried. Anyway, we know the whole point of Final Shape is that it will start a new cadence of releases for the game. Bungie say they're going to be kind of breaking out of their shackles, right? A new format that'll be more sustainable, and all of these good things. But what about the management? Because really, as much as all these game details are interesting, I think people are more existentially worried about what's going on. To move on to what's next, it's supposed to be Marathon, basically resurrecting a old FPS for the Apple Macintosh. Marathon's actually really cool, and I'd recommend that you check out the Mandalore gaming videos on Marathon. Just going through the lore and stuff like that, it's really interesting. Now, the original Marathon is actually on Steam. Yeah, it's been dropped on Steam, so you can actually play that if you want. If it feels a bit impenetrable, again, I would recommend...
Yeah, it's a really old game if you haven't figured out. I have seen the video of Mandalore. It's really good, actually.
I recommend you check out the Mandalore video. I mean, even just for, like, a little bit of interesting lore and some gaming history, it's a good way to pass some time. Anyway, this is going to be a very different take on Marathon because it's going to be a player-driven extraction shooter, and that's what Bungie are spending a lot of time on with a big old dedicated team. Now, the threat of reporting from IGN appears to have actually forced Bungie's leadership to admit recently that things are changing up on that development team. So here's what's happened. The now ex-Valorant game director, Joe Ziegler, has announced himself as having been in that role for 9 months. Now, he replaced a very long-time Bungie vet called Christopher Barrett, who now seems to be the executive creative director at Bungie. So that's all fairly interesting. I suppose he was just secretly there for 9 months. And honestly, here things get a little bit strange. So it actually seems that what happened is that IGN reached out, right? As you're going to do if you're doing a report, you reach out for comment. It seems that them doing that actually prompted this to happen. You know, the fun update for the last 9 months, I've been working on Marathon. And that is...
How does Marathon actually play into Bungie's fall into the lap of Sony? Not at all, by the way. Marathon is actually a liability, considering it's not yet out. And that has absolutely no impact on the revenue they're making, which is bad. Really, really bad.
Actually kind of interesting because Paul Tassi then pointed out, I'll just read his tweet, one thing that makes the timeline bizarre here is if Ziegler is saying he had been Marathon game director for 9 months, Barrett would have left quite literally weeks after the reveal where he was heavily featured to debut the game, which really is some mighty bizarre timing. So good insight from Paul. Obviously, he does follow Destiny pretty closely. Now, to go back to IGN, they also heard that things have been a bit strange with Marathon, and I'll just do a quote from them. While this is going on, sources tell IGN that Bungie is pouring resources into getting Marathon out the door. The game's direction has shifted somewhat under Ziegler's new leadership.
I'm pretty sure there's no way it's gonna be ready before, everything with Sony actually, settles and whatnot. So, if they're trying to rush Marathon out the door, that's even worse in this situation. So yeah, everything in Bungie looks currently really, really bad.
Source says. Moving away.
If they're rushing Marathon, that's probably bad because the game's going to be half-baked at this point. And, if they're not rushing out Marathon, they're spending resources on something that is going to get them all fired. Oh, man. It's a sinking ship, and that's how it looks.
Away from custom player characters in favor of a selectable cast of heroes. Ooh. Yes, this seemingly is going to be a hero-based selection for an extraction shooter. I mean, there you go. We're just mixing all the modern things together.
I mean, that doesn't sound bad, by the way. That sounds kind of cool. That sounds interesting. I have nothing against that.
Lovely. But of course, this is happening in a genre like the extraction shooter that's often quite heavily dependent on the ongoing customization of your character via loot. That does make this really quite strange, but I suppose for the sake of Bungie, maybe they're going to want to try to make, these characters be heroes, so they can perhaps sell things like cosmetics. Dare I say, skins for the heroes, in the same way the likes of Call of Duty went from being, military dudes to operators. And that was obviously a very heavy part of their microtransaction loop. Quite the situation, isn't it? Now, going back to the stuff, it's been thought that there's been other projects at development over in Bungie, but the existence of those has not actually been really clear. And this is where IGN gets interesting, because they have the scoop. Project Matter is a game that was framed as a new IP from the company, and it was being developed on a long-term basis. And IGN are reporting now that Matter was killed in 2020 before the Sony acquisition, but that there was continued exploration of...
So it was Sony.
...the project in sort of different styles until late 2022, which of course is after the acquisition. Then we've got Project Gummy Bears. This was weird because it was revealed to the public via job listings as a sort of incubation project in August 2023. That's obviously not that long ago. I'll just do a little quote here. One of our favorite incubation projects is a team-based action game inspired by several genres in a brand new science fantasy universe. It draws inspiration from fighting games, platformers, MOBAs, life sims, and frog-type games wrapped up in a lighthearted comedic world. So there you go. It would have been another bold entry.
Yep, that sounds exactly like what the average Bungie fan expects from their games. Frog Simulator. Could be good, but, press extra doubt real hard here in this case.
The frog-type game genre. I mean, hey, you got frog fractions to beat, good luck. Anyway, it does seem that this project is, as IGN put it, currently in a holding pattern after the layoffs and the general struggles that the studio has faced. And this does leave Bungie in a pretty damn curious position, because they've got Destiny. It's on the verge of a real do-or-die massive expansion that's got so much riding on it, especially after they've had pretty low...
Yeah, and it currently looks really bad because their sales numbers currently are way, way, way below any expectancy. But that's what happens when, your game has such a long negative PR. It is what it is. Maybe they should sunset more stuff and make, the beginner experience for new players even worse. That could work, said probably at Bungie unironically. No, seriously, Bungie has one of the worst new player experiences ever. There's pop-ups of things that you can't even use for another 20 hours because you haven't unlocked it, but it tells you, good job, you found this. What is that? I don't fucking know. Finish the tutorial, go to the weapons merchant, who's now dead. It's just so unbelievably bad.
Revenue compared to what they expected. As much as there can be a lot of sort of doom watching and, we can get the popcorn out for things like this, I do want to make it very clear, and there's plenty of times in the past that I've really enjoyed Destiny 2. In fact, after Skill Up doing some coverage of stuff before Lightfall, I was really interested because it seemed everything about Witch Queen just said, hey, they have got this worked out. It's awesome, which is why...
Yeah, but everyone was happy with Witch Queen.
Why their most recent expansion was really quite the bummer. So this is a do or die thing.
Well, probably, yeah, because you had a essentially just a bunch of gay dudes telling you how gay they are, and that was unironically the expansion. It looked like shit, and well, that's kind of it. The story was also horrendously annoying.
Absolutely hope that this is the expansion the Destiny players want and deserve, but with all of this chaos swirling around, a lot of the bizarre decisions, it's kind of hard to tell. Anyway, there's Destiny, there's the incubation projects, which do seem to be more in a holding pattern, and that means that everything falls on Marathon, like quadruply so. If Final Shape, I'm not even going to say if it doesn't do well. I'm going to say that if Final Shape is just a mediocre success, given where Destiny is now.
Currently, it can't even be a mediocre success from what I know, because it's already below mediocre in everything. People are just waiting. If I would ask the question how many people play Destiny 2 and are not pre-ordering Lightfall, or are gonna wait and see is it actually good, there's gonna be a bunch of people who are gonna say that, because no one wants to just drop money on this, considering how bad the previous experiences have been and how low, well, hype and everything is around it. So
I have to imagine that'll be a failure, because, well, come on, we've been covering what Sony are like on the financial side for ages now. You've got the likes of Insomniac Games who are just, they're putting out straight bangers. And I know that not everybody loves all of their games, but just by the sales numbers, Insomniac have been doing serious work, and they have still been...
Spider-Man 2 underperformed and lost money still, I think. It is not financially viable. They spend so much more money on Spider-Man developing, well, so honestly little, that they lost money. Well, they probably made money at this point. The fact that they lost money previously was like months ago at this point. But maybe they're breaking even now. Who honestly knows? But Spider-Man 2, even though it's a good game, is a financial flop.
Been getting job cuts. I mean, if the absolute rock stars of the group are getting job cuts, and Bungie is expensive and a bit of a shit show, man, you'd be kind of worried. And that is something that seems to be happening with staff. As IGN sources suggest, even if they do manage to do well, there is seemingly no plan for the future. Here again is a quote from their reporting. While upcoming Destiny 2 expansion Final Shape is also being prioritized, there are growing fears and rumors that layoffs will immediately follow its release. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh my god. One person with knowledge of budgets at Bungie told me that, quote, nothing adds up, and, quote, something will need to happen to curb costs unless the Final Shape does...
Yeah. Now, we have absolutely no idea what this deal with Sony is, how much of a revenue goal they need to hit and whatnot, but, keep in mind, most likely whatever this deal is, it can be heavily influenced by firing people, because that's the way you save money. So, let's see.
So well to cover the gap, and people can move to Marathon. So that seems screwed. And as much as, as people who follow the industry, we're talking about this, can you imagine like this being the tone and the mood at your day job, and you
Yes.
coming into work, and this is what the news is,
Yes.
and you're worried about leadership? And well, that's probably my segue to talking about the leadership. So there's only so many Ghostbusters or Mass Effect crossover packs that you can sell to people to eke out more revenue. And I gotta be real, man, those Mass Effect skins really did look good. But yes, here you go. You can call the Ghostbusters. You can do that, if you want a little optional purchase opportunity within Destiny 2. So that was just...
Do we get the female Ghostbusters? Do we get the diversity hire Ghostbusters? That's the real Ghostbusters.
Field. I'm sure that will get them out of their financial hole immediately. Anyway, this is really all leading me into the most damning part of IGN's reporting. So, Bungie's leadership know that they are on notice from PlayStation. And in fairness, if you know and I know that they've been put on notice from PlayStation, I'm not really surprised that they know. But we've seen this be very clearly stated to investors by Sony. The Sony dude, he literally said that some managers need to manage their budgets better. They need to be more disciplined on how they're spending money and that kind of thing. Which, it was all done in a very polite way that was trying to respect the creativity of staff. But it's the sort of thing, if you're reading in between the lines, it is absolutely daggers and knives and horrible pokey things going at the management. And, well, if you're that management, are you just going to check out? take some money, and then leave and go to another ship. Now, I return to IGN's report. Within the company, there is growing expectation that senior leadership will leave in droves in the summer of 2026, when the final payouts from Sony's acquisition of the company take effect. With this in mind, there is a strong push to get Marathon out the door before then, and let whoever takes the reins...
Oh, okay, so there's more stuff about the deal that we don't know. But again, Sony would probably not make this deal if they had confidence in Bungie that they're not gonna get it. Because they didn't do it just because, oh, we wanted to blah 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 little share of this. No, they saw an opportunity to take Bungie for themselves, and they're obviously, taking it.
After that, be it Sony or Bungie, worry about how it is sustained. I mean, this is really amazing. It seems to not really be aligned with players.
Okay, so 2 more years? I mean, Marathon could save them. Because, now, admittedly, because if it's so far in the future, in Sony... Typically, there should be absolutely no way for Sony to not know about the potential revenue source that Bungie could generate through Marathon. But there is a way to actually make it in the deal that's not calculated in because there is no chance that Marathon actually can make an impact before the deadline. Technically. Could this have happened? There is a chance that yes, and maybe this is Bungie's Hail Mary. They put all their efforts into saying, okay, Marathon's not going to be part of the equation, and after the equation is done and everyone has signed the paperwork, well, that equation can't really be changed unless you want to try and sue someone. But good luck trying to sue Sony. They're going to launch missiles at your house, probably, and claim it was terrorists, because, reasons. Sony makes tanks, if you did not know. In any case, and missiles, and a lot of weapons. So they're pretty dangerous. So, maybe, and then the leadership of Bungie thought, okay, we got Marathon out of this deal, but we could push Marathon and actually make it in time. And if the deal doesn't account for the influence of Marathon, we save ourselves. Now, this could be a Hail Mary, but it's really hard for me to imagine that Sony would ever go with a deal like this without a precaution. If Marathon releases, then revenue is expected to go up by X for, that period or overall or whatever. There is a small chance, though, that this could happen. But, again, kind of doubtful. I think they're just putting a lot of eggs in the Marathon basket because Marathon does sound pretty good. Marathon does sound interesting. Marathon does sound like something that a lot of people would buy.
It doesn't seem to be aligned with shareholder value. It really doesn't seem to be aligned with anything, which really doesn't sound like the best way to do things. Anyway, they've decided that the short-term sprints, post-launch layoffs, and generally short-term planning is the way to go. This is not a company with a 10-year plan. This is a company trying to work out how can we crawl our way quarter to quarter, half to half, year to year, and basically survive until we go and cash out our final big yummy payments. Because if they are going to cash those out in 2026, all they have to do is reach that point. That is the incentive of management, right? And that's not going to be good. That is not going to be good whatsoever for the staff, because the staff, they're not going to have that incentive, are they? And that might, indeed, folks, give them an incentive to leave. Oh, wait, we live in hell. The games markets kind of went... So, it's honestly really rough, and I mean, goddamn, man.
Yeah, I have no idea what he means by the game market, but... Yeah, I don't know.
Destiny players, you guys have been through a lot, and, you know, you deserve good stuff, and Destiny deserves good stuff. Sad thing, even in Destiny 1, you know, when Destiny 1, like, its lore and all of that stuff, it was a shit show, you had the Dinklebot and all those weird things, there were still the people who saw the art direction, saw the gunplay, actually enjoyed that stuff. They even went, they looked up the codexes that they could unlock on the Bungie website, and they actually saw really cool lore. All the lore speculation people, and, well, you know, they got veiled for the last year, so rip them. But still, the point is, just about everybody here deserves...
The lore went to shit when Bungie most likely took a BlackRock ESG deal. Because they had, like, decent lore until, what, a year or two ago? And then the main guy who wrote the lore got fired, and then you had then you had these magical stories where where the big reveal of the season is, aha, I'm actually gay. Yeah, that's when the lore completely turned to shit, as much as people have been telling me.
Better. Maybe with the exception of Bungie's leadership. I mean, Sony probably deserve better, the players probably deserve better as well, and the staff deserve better. Yeah, I mean, Sony went and got these, you know, supposed absolute live service geniuses, and they only went and did a Beyond... No, not Beyond Light. Lightfall! Ah, the shit one. The expansion that was very weird that just came out. Anyway, that is it for today's video. We're going over this report from IGN.
Yeah, pretty decent stuff. Again, Bungie is in so much trouble, it's not even funny. That was Billy Your News, 10 out of 10. And this was Sid. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already, and have a nice day. Bye-bye.